Good day, everyone. Welcome to our Fisheries Professionals Licensure Examination review. This review is intended for those fisheries graduates and students who will take the Fisheries Board exam. In this video, we are going to respond to some possible board exam questions. But before we proceed, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to get notified when we upload new videos. So let us start. Question number 31. Which of these species does not belong in the group? A. Limna, B. Azolla, C. Valesneria, or letter D. Ceratophyllum? The correct answer for this question is letter C, Valesneria. Question number 31 is all about macrophytes. Macrophytes are aquatic plants growing in or near water. They provide cover for fish and substrate for aquatic invertebrates. They also produce oxygen and provide food for some fish and other wildlife. According to Aguilar 1995, there are 5 classifications of Philippine macrophytes. The first one is emergents. Emergents are plants rooted in the soil substrate below the water surface, while shoots and reproductive organs remain suspended above the water surface. They are present in lake less than 2 meters depth. Examples are cattails, phragmites or leeches and grasses, bulrush, and arrowhead. The second one is the floating leaf. They are rooted at the bottom, but their leaves and flowers are afloat on the surface. Their leaves float parallel to the water surface, with petiole length parallel proportional to the water depth in areas to 4 meters depth. Examples are lutus and water lily. Next is the free-floating. As the name says, they are plants float freely on the water surface, allowing the entire plant body to be moved around by wind and water current. They are unattached, its roots may dangle in the water, and the shoots appear above the water surface. Examples are water hyacinth, azolla, or the water fern, and limna or duckweed. Moreover, these plants may be submerged but entangled among other macrophytes such as hydrolia or lumut-lumutan, ceratophyllum or digman, and water cabbage or pestia. The fourth one is a submerged. These plants completely grow underwater, anchored on hard substratum that keeps it underwater, except for species that reproductive parts are seen on water surface. Examples are Valesneria or eelgrass, Potamogeton or panweed, Utricularia or bladderwort, Kabomba, and Elodea. And the fifth one are the phreatophytes. Phreatophytes are plants reaching the capillary zone overlaying the water table. They grow at margins along lakes, riverbanks, irrigation canals, reservoirs, and rice paddies. Number 32. Which of the following are considered the greatest global threat to coral reef ecosystems? A. Physical damage or destruction from fishing practices. B. Pollution from coastal development, urban stormwater runoff, and mining. C. Increased ocean temperatures and changing ocean chemistry. Or letter D. Sea level rise and altered ocean circulation patterns. The answer for this question is letter C, increased ocean temperatures and changing ocean chemistry. As mentioned by Graham et al. 2017, coral reefs are degrading globally due to various factors or threats that are directly or indirectly linked to human activities. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and also the National Oceanic Service stressed that increased ocean temperatures and changing ocean chemistry are the greatest global threats to coral reef ecosystems. These threats are caused by warmer atmospheric temperatures and increasing levels of carbon dioxide dissolved in seawater. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, as shown in the left figure, believes that climate change is the greatest global threat to coral reef ecosystems. Scientific evidence now clearly indicates that the Earth's atmosphere and ocean are warming, and these changes are primarily due to greenhouse gases derived from human activities. They also cited that as temperatures rise, mass coral bleaching events and infectious disease outbreaks are becoming more frequent. Additionally, carbon dioxide absorbed into the ocean from the atmosphere has already begun to reduce calcification rates in reef building and reef-associated organisms by altering seawater chemistry through decreases in pH. This process is called ocean acidification. Furthermore, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency mentioned that sea level rise, increased frequency and intensity of storms, and altered ocean circulation patterns can also affect coral reefs. Number 33. Why do sea cucumbers and sea urchins have long coiled guts? 1. To have more space for food storage. 2. To have longer digesting time for breaking down plant materials. 3. To sort food out of substantial sediments. Or 4. Because they are carnivorous spiny species. A. 1, 2, 3, and 4. B. 3, 2, and 4. C. 1 and 2. Or letter D. 2 and 3. The correct answer for this question is letter D. 2 and 3. Echinodermata are exclusively marine organisms. This includes sea stars, sea cucumbers, sea urchins, sand dollars, and brittle stars. Echinoderms possess a simple digestive system which varies according to the animal's diet. Sea urchins feed on tough to digest algae and marine grasses, so they need a longer digestive tract to process the food. On the other hand, sea cucumbers swallow sediment as they crawl on the ocean floor, so long gut is used for sorting food out of the sediment. Question number 34. Which of the following unique services provided by our ecosystem does not belong to the group? A. Pollination. B. Photosynthesis. C. Water purification. Or letter D. Decomposition. The answer for this question is letter B, photosynthesis. A, C, and D is under regulating services while letter B is under supporting services. As published by NationalWildlifeFederation.org, Millennium Ecosystem Assessment identified 4 major categories of ecosystem services. These are provisioning, regulating, cultural, and supporting services. A provisioning services are goods or products produced by ecosystems. These are benefits to people that can be extracted from nature, along with food, which includes the aquaculture, agriculture, fisheries, wild foods. Other types of provisioning services include drinking water, raw materials such as timber, wood, fuel, natural gas, and oils, plants that can be made into clothes and other materials, and medicinal benefits. On the other hand, regulating services are benefits provided by ecosystem processes that moderate natural phenomena. Regulating services include air regulation, pollination, decomposition, water purification, erosion and flood control, pest regulation, carbon storage and climate regulation, and many others. Next is the cultural services. A cultural service is a non-material benefit that contribute to the development and cultural advancement of people, including how ecosystems play a role in local, national, and global cultures, the building of knowledge and the spreading of ideas, creativity born from interaction with nature, music, art, architecture, and recreation. Examples are ecotourism, spiritual and religious values, ethical and existing values, and many others. And last, the supporting services. Supporting services are processes that allow the earth to sustain basic life forms, let alone full ecosystem and people. These are functions that maintain all other services. Without supporting services, provisional, regulating, and cultural services wouldn't exist. Examples are nutrient cycling, water cycling, photosynthesis, and primary production. Number 35. What part of the mangrove crab is employed for defense? What part of the mangrove crab is employed for defense? A. Carpus, B. Dactylus, C. Pereiopods, or letter D. Theropods. The answer is letter B, Dactylus. All the swimming crab species, including Portunidae, example the blue swimming crabs and the Ciliate species, has a carapace, 2 claws, 3 pairs of walking legs, and 1 pair of swimming leg. Ciliate species has a distinctive pair of big claws which contribute to 20 to 40% of their overall weight, with the claws of the females appearing to be smaller than the males. These claws are what make mangrove crabs one of the most demanded seafood in Asian countries. That is according to rasaquaculture.com. So we have here the shellipids of the mangrove crabs that are used to cut or crush their food or prey. The claw or shelda is a part of the shellipids that includes the dactyl and propodus. The claw with teeth similar to molar teeth in humans is used for crushing shells, and it is called the crusher claw, whereas the other claw with sharper teeth, which is used for cutting the flesh, is known as the cutter claw. On the claw, there is a movable finger or movable tip known as the dactylus, which is also used for defense by the mangrove crabs. And also, there is a fixed finger or a movable tip known as the pollex. The second segment of the shellipid is the propodus, the third segment is the elbow or carpus, and the fourth segment is the narus. On the propodus and carpus, we will find the presence of spines that we use to identify the different Ciliate species of mangrove crabs. Moreover, there are 3 pairs of walking legs used for accessing areas on land by the mangrove crabs, and the 4th pair of flattened legs are used for swimming. Each walking legs has 4 segments, namely the dactyl, being the farthest from the carapace, the propodus, the carpus, and the narus. The dactyls have chemoreceptors that the crabs use to find food and detect cues around them. Number 36. What causes the upwelling and downwelling in the ocean and large lakes? 1. Earth's rotation, the Coriolis effect. 2. Persistent winds. 3. Intense seismic activities causing severe shaking and mixing of water. 4. High volumes of fresh water are displaced onto the surface by super typhoons that produce an abundance of rain. 5. Restrictions on lateral movements of water caused by shorelines and shallow bottoms. A. 1, 3, and 4. B. 5, 4, 3, and 1. C. 1, 2, and 5. Or letter D. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer for this question is letter C, 1, 2, and 5. As cited by the oceanmotion.org, upwelling and downwelling also occur in the open ocean, where winds cause surface waters to diverge or move away from a region, causing upwelling, or to converge toward some region, causing downwelling. For example, upwelling takes place along much of the equator. You can recall that the deflection due to the Coriolis effect reverses direction on either side of the equator. Hence, westward flowing, wind-driven surface currents near the equator turn northward on the north side of the equator and southward on the south side. Surface waters are moved away from the equator and replaced by upwelling waters. In some coastal areas of the ocean and large lakes such as the North American Great Lakes, as mentioned by the oceanmotion.org, the combination of persistent winds, Earth's rotation, the Coriolis effect, and restrictions on lateral movements of water caused by shorelines and shallow bottoms induces upward and downward water movements, as explained. The Coriolis effect plus the frictional coupling of wind and water, the Ekman transport, caused net movement of surface water at about 90 degrees to the right of the wind direction in the northern hemisphere and to the left of the wind direction in the southern hemisphere. Coastal upwelling occurs where Ekman transport moves surface waters away from the coast and the surface waters are replaced by water that wells up from below as shown on the attached figure. Meanwhile, where Ekman transport moves surface waters towards the coast, the water piles up and sinks in a process known as coastal downwelling. Observe the left side of the figure. Upwelling and downwelling illustrate mass continuity in the ocean. That is, water is a continuous fluid so that a change in distribution of water in one area is accompanied by a compensating change in water distribution in another area. Furthermore, as stressed by the oceanmotion.org, upwelling and downwelling influence sea surface temperature and biological productivity. When the thermocline is shallow, the upwelling waters are usually rich in dissolved nutrients, for example the nitrogen and phosphate compounds, which are required for phytoplankton growth. This nutrient transport in the surface waters where sunlight, also required for the phytoplankton growth, is present results in rapid growth of phytoplankton populations. On the other hand, in zone of coastal downwelling, the surface layer of warm, nutrient-deficient waters thickens as water sinks. Downwelling reduces biological productivity and transports heat, dissolved materials, and surface waters rich in dissolved oxygen to greater depths. Number 37. Which of the following determines the density of ocean water? Which of the following determines the density of ocean water? 1. Salinity, 2. Turbidity, 3. Temperature, or 4. Depth. A. 1 and 2, B. 3 and 4, C. 1 and 3, or letter D. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The correct answer for this question is letter C, 1 and 3. Density is a measure of how tightly a certain amount of matter is packed into a given volume. It is the amount of mass per unit volume, such as grams per cubic centimeter. The density of seawater plays a vital role in causing ocean currents and circulating heat because of the fact that the dense water sinks below less dense. The density of ocean water are controlled by temperature, salinity, and pressure. Density increases with increasing salinity, decreasing temperature, and with increasing pressure. According to Roger Williams University 2023, pressure has the less impact on density as water is fairly incompressible, so pressure effects are not very significant except at extreme depths. That leaves temperature and salinity as the primary factors determining density, and of these, temperature has the greatest impact. These two, salinity and temperature, together they help govern the density of seawater, which is a major factor controlling the ocean's vertical movements and layered circulation. Cold salty water is denser than warm fresh water and will sink below the less dense layer. Mixing of seawater influences the density of seawater, thereby, as I said earlier, it affecting ocean circulation. Seawater mixing also has an effect on ocean life. The density of our fresh water is 1 gram per cubic centimeter at 4 degrees Celsius, but the addition of salts and other dissolved substances increases surface seawater or ocean water density to between 1.02 and 1.03 gram per cubic centimeter. Number 38. What are the two most important limiting elements in aquatic ecosystem? What are the two most important limiting elements in aquatic ecosystem? 1. Nitrogen. 2. Potassium. 3. Magnesium. 4. Phosphorus. A. 1 and 2. B. 3 and 4. C. 2 and 3. Or letter D. 1 and 4. The answer for this question is letter D, 1 and 4. As identified by Redfield 1932 and 1958 and cited by Martini et al. 2014, there is a similarity between the entry ratio of plankton living in the surface ocean and that of dissolved nitrate and phosphate in the deep ocean. These two nutrients or elements, the nitrogen and phosphorus, are essential nutrients or elements that commonly limit phytoplankton growth in the ocean and aquatic ecosystems. As a fundamental principle of aquatic science, the oceans and other saltwater ecosystems, nitrogen is often the limiting nutrient, while in streams, lakes, and freshwater ecosystems, phosphorus is typically the limiting nutrient or element. Although phosphorus is considered the limiting nutrient for phytoplankton production in freshwater systems, according to Rabelais 2002, the effect of atmospheric nitrogen and its contribution to acidification of fresh waters can be detrimental. Within the estuarine to coastal continuum, multiple nutrient limitations occur among nitrogen, phosphorus, and silicon along the salinity gradient and by season. But Rabelais 2002 stressed that nitrogen is generally considered the primary limiting nutrient for phytoplankton biomass accumulation. However, according to Hickey 1988, nitrogen limitation in the marine environments remains an open question due to fundamentally weaker evidence than evidence for phosphorus limitation in freshwater. In addition, aside from those elements, our aquatic ecosystem sometimes receives a significant input of a limiting nutrient. For example, runoff from heavily fertilized fields. The result of this runoff can be an algal bloom, a dramatic increase in the amount of algae and other primary producers due to the increase in nutrients. If there are not enough consumers to eat the algae, an algal bloom can cover the water's surface and disrupt the functioning of an ecosystem. Number 39. What coral field survey method involves pulling a snorkel diver slowly behind a small boat around the perimeter of each survey reef to make direct observations on the condition of corals? A. Video transect. B. Manta tow. C. Permanent quadrat. Or letter D. Line intercept transect. The correct answer for this question is letter B, manta tow. A manta tow is one of the coral reef survey methods by which a snorkel is towed behind a small boat to make direct observations on the condition of corals. In this type of coral field survey method, the observer holds on to a manta board attached to a small boat by a 17-meter length of rope which has bows placed at distances of 6 meters and 12 meters from the board. The observer makes a visual assessment of specific variables during each manta tow and records this data when the boat stops on a data sheet attached on the manta board, usually on water-resistant paper. Question number 40. What organisms can withstand a narrow range of temperature changes? What organisms can withstand a narrow range of temperature changes? A. Homothermic organisms. B. Euthermic organisms. C. Oligothermic organisms. Or letter D. Stenothermic organisms. The answer for this question is stenothermic organism. Organisms have an ecological minimum and maximum. The range in between represents the limits of tolerance. Upper and lower limits to the range of particular environmental factors such as light or temperature within which organisms or species can survive is called limit of tolerance. So, we have here the prefixes steno and euri. Steno means narrow, while euri means wide. This refers to the degree of tolerance of the organisms. For our question, it focused on the temperature changes, so the answer is stenothermic or stenothermal or thermal refers to the temperature. We have here another terminology such as stenohydric, which means narrow water range. Euryhydric refers to wide water range. Stenohaline means narrow salinity range, while euryhaline, which means wide salinity range. Stenophagic, which means narrow food range, and euryphagic, which means wide food range. Stenaceous refers to narrow habitat range, and lastly, euriaceous, which means wide habitat range. Number 41. What do you call an organism that's only active during twilight? What do you call an organism that's only active during twilight? A. Nocturnal. B. Crepuscular. C. Diurnal. Or letter D. Cathemeral. The answer for this question is letter B, crepuscular. The timing of wakefulness or the species activity periods relative to the daylight-dark cycle is divided into 4 broad categories. We have the diurnal, wherein the wakefulness concentrated during the light phase or active during the day. Nocturnal, wherein the wakefulness concentrated during the dark phase or active during night. Crepuscular, wherein most activity occurring during twilight or active mostly during the dusk and dawn. And last, the cathemeral, wherein it is active during both the day and night. Number 42. How many protected areas are established as national parks under INAIPA's law? A. 246. B. 178, C. 94, or letter D. 121. The correct answer for this question is letter C. 94. In NIPA's law, or the Expanded National Integrated Protected Area System Act of 2018 amends the NIPA's Act, or RA 7586. In this act, they established 94 more protected areas, which increased the number of protected areas covered by legislation from 13 to 107 for a total of 3 million hectares. Question number 43. What adverse impact do invasive species have on the aquatic environment? What adverse impact do invasive species have on the aquatic environment? 1. Extinction of native species. 2. Alter habitats. 3. Compete with limited resources. 4. Reduce biodiversity. A. 1 and 2. B. 3 and 4. C. 1 and 3. Or letter D. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The answer for this question is letter D. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Aside from the extinction of native species, alteration of habitats, competition for native species with limited resources, and reduction of biodiversity, there are various adverse impacts that invasive species have not only on the aquatic environment but also on our economic and social aspects. For our economic aspects, it may result in a reduction in production, such as in the agriculture, livestock, aquaculture, and fisheries sectors, an imbalance in ecosystem services, and a hampering of transportation. For our social aspects, it may lead to poor revenue through recreation or tourism and have health impacts. Question number 44. These are species that possess a very high risk of extinction as a result of rapid population declines of 30 to more than 50% over the previous 10 years or 3 generations, a current population size of fewer than 1,000 individuals, or other factors are known as blank. A. Threatened species. B. Endangered species. C. Vulnerable species. Or letter D. Critically endangered species. The correct answer for this question is letter C, vulnerable species. The IUCN Red List is a critical indicator of the health of the world's biodiversity. The IUCN Red List categories and criteria are intended to be an easily and widely understood system for classifying species at high risk of global extinction. It indicates how close a species is becoming extinct. It divides species into 9 categories: the not evaluated, data deficient, less concerned, near threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, extinct in the wild, and extinct. For the extinct, or EX, a designation applied to species in which the last individual has died or where systematic and time-appropriate surveys have been unable to log even a single individual. The extinct in the wild, or EW, this is a category containing those species whose members survive only in captivity or as artificially supported population far outside their historical geographic range. The threatened species is a general term to denote species or subspecies that is critically endangered, vulnerable, or other accepted categories of wildlife whose populations are at risk of extinction. So we have the critically endangered, or CR. It is a category containing those species that possess an extremely high risk of extinction as a result of rapid population declines of 80 to more than 90% over the previous 10 years or 3 generations, a current population size of fewer than 50 individuals, or other factors. This refers to species that are facing extremely high risk of extinction in the wild in the immediate future. Then the endangered or EN. It is a designation applied to species that possess a very high risk of extinction as a result of rapid population declines of 50 to more than 70% over the previous 10 years or 3 generations, a current population size of fewer than 250 individuals or other factors. This refers to species or subspecies that are not critically endangered but whose survival in the wild is unlikely if the causative factors continue. Next is vulnerable or VU. It is a category containing those species that possess a very high risk of extinction as a result of rapid population declines of 30 to more than 50% over the previous 10 years or 3 generations, a current population size of fewer than 1,000 individuals or other factors. This refers to species or subspecies that are not critically endangered nor endangered but is under threat from adverse factors throughout its range. Then next is the near threatened or NT, a designation applied to species that are close to becoming threatened or may meet the criteria for threatened status in the near future. Then we have the less concern. It is a category containing species that are pervasive and abundant after careful assessment. Then the data deficient or DD. It is a condition applied to species in which the amount of available data related to its risk of extinction is lacking in some way. Consequently, a complete assessment cannot be performed. Thus, unlike the other categories in this list, this category does not describe the conservation status of a species. And last is the not evaluated or NE. It is a category used to include any of the nearly 1.9 million species described by science but not assessed by IUCN. Number 45. Which of the following choices represent the ecological importance of seagrasses? A. An essential habitat to marine mammals, invertebrates, and fish species. B. Provide livelihood opportunity to coastal communities. C. Good source of raw materials for commercial products. Or letter D. All of the above. The answer for this question is letter A, an essential habitat to marine mammals, invertebrates, and fish species. Seagrasses are found in shallow salty and brackish waters in many parts of the world. Although not as well known as tropical forests or coral reefs, seagrass meadows are among the most productive and important ecosystem in the world. They are marine flowering plants that support thousands of key species and essential ecosystem functions. Seagrass beds support thousands of marine species, store carbon, improve water quality, protect coastlines, cycle nutrients, and create habitat corridors between coral reefs and mangroves. According to National Wildlife Federation.org, seagrasses had been called the lungs of the sea because they release oxygen into the water through the process of photosynthesis. As of now, Quarter 2018 stressed that there are 18 seagrass species found in the Philippines from 529 sites. So that ends our review questions. I hope you learned a lot from this video. See you in the next session. Thank you.